important black person in the world right now is Ibrahim Traore, very small country in West Africa. Why is he the most important black person in the world right now? You ever wonder why Africa as a continent has been so long? Well, this is not debatable. This is a historical fact. They colonize the country, right? As colonizing the country, they have rights to all of the natural resources. They pretty much have all of the power in the country. Then when they leave and they get their quote unquote independence, they make them sign treaties, which actually still reverts all their natural resources back to their home country, mainly France.
Let's call it what it is. It's extortion.
Exactly. For pennies. You should read the book Economic Hitman if you haven't read it. Confessions of the Economic Hitman. This is why leadership is important and government is important. When you have a leader that steps up and says, no, this isn't right. We want change. We want self-determination. We want to control our natural resources, like Kwame Nkrumah, the founder of Ghana. The CIA comes and coordinates his exile and runs him out the country. He eventually dies. Or you have Patricia Lumumba in Congo, who was killed. Who do you think orchestrated his killing? And this isn't in my opinion. This is a historical fact. This is no emotions. Yeah. That's why I'm taking my time with this, right? So what they do is that they come and they give you an option and they say, okay, you can sell out your country and give us the natural resources for cheap, and we'll make you very wealthy, you and your family.
In perpetuity. Back to that.
Now, if you refuse this, then we'll kill you. And some people have refused it and they got killed. And then the people that take their positions are corrupt leadership propped up by the West, and they don't care about their people. They don't care about their natural resources. They sell it. They let them come rob, and it's good for business because they can get it for dollars on the cheap. They can get copper or gold, oil, you name it. And this cycle has continued since they got their quote unquote independence. And it's been a system that has continuously kept Africa in poverty on purpose, done by the Western governments, Europe and America. Now you have a leader like Ibrahim Traore, who takes power from a military coup from a corrupt leader that was already in power, kicks France out of the country. Then it becomes a domino effect. Then Mali follows suit. Then you have all of these other countries in West Africa that was colonies of France, kicking the French out, taking control of the natural resources, paying off their debt. Well, that's dangerous. If that's a model that can be followed and duplicated, now you no longer have this economic oppression that these countries are over. Now they can actually start to move forward. But we saw somebody else try to do this before and he didn't last. So when you say things like a victim mindset or stop blaming people, it's really an ignorant thing to say because you're not providing any historical context when you're saying you're a victim, stop blaming people. You're not. And it's the same thing that could be said in America. Okay, stop blaming. Well, okay, black people were slaves in America and then built up wealth in a very short period of time and had the wealth stolen from them. The free important black person in the world.
Faso's revolutionary leader, Ibrahim Traore, the youngest leader of any country in Africa, was just offered by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia to allow Saudi Arabia to build 200 new mosques in Burkina Faso. Ibrahim Traore is a Muslim man, but he responded to Mohammed bin Salman with a different suggestion. He said, I greatly appreciate your offer, but my people can pray anywhere. If the people of Gaza can continue to pray, why do my people need 200 new mosques right now? Maybe one day that would be great, but right now the people of Burkina Faso need new hospitals, new schools, new jobs to simply stay alive amid threats of Western aggression. This exceptional leadership from Ibrahim Traore exemplifies why the West has tried to unalive him at least 16 times now over the past 2 years. The West fears a truly sovereign and brilliant mind and a young leader like Ibrahim Traore who has the capacity to take Africa into a sovereign and free future. Burkina Faso's
Good morning and welcome to another edition of Let It Be Known. I'm your host, Stacey Brown. This is the Black Press of America's morning show.
Peace and love and good morning, Stacey and Let It Be Known family. I'm your co-pilot, Niel, and we're going to dive into some hot topics, some headlines, trending topics that are uplifting and, of course, impacting the Black experience.
Yeah, those videos were a lot, but they said a lot. Things that we know, we know how folks in the West look at our African nations, and there's a lot of resources there, and you know that's what attracted people. That's what attracted the slave catchers to Africa, hundreds of years ago as well. So
Yeah. So what are we talking about this morning, Stacy?
we're talking about a lot of stuff. I just learned. So the 688, the
Mm,
All Black Women Battalion,
mm-hmm.
today they are receiving their Congressional Gold Medals today. Um, I always
Mm,
I thought that they had received them, but 2 years ago, Congress did pass a resolution. Joe Biden signed it, um, and now they're just getting it. And you know, sometimes timing is everything, and
right.
maybe it's a good thing that they're getting it right now under
Why do you say
this
that?
climate with well because it shows all this administration with its anti and that I won't say anti-diversity, equity, inclusion. It's anti-black, it's anti-women. These are fabulous women
Mm-hmm.
who provided this country a major service during the war, and now all these years later they are being recognized at a time. Remember back then,
Right.
they they were separate, right?
Right.
And today we have an administration that wants us separate in a lot of ways.
I mean, they probably would want to revert back to that philosophy. But I think,
Hmm.
nevertheless, the ancestors are, sometimes can dictate how things go. I remember at the LA Sentinel, Reverend Tulis, who actually helped us book our guest for today, he introduced me to one of the sons from the 6888. And this was probably about, Stacy, 2 weeks before Tyler Perry announced that he was going to do this movie. And so I was having this conversation, and then when he came on the show at the LA Sentinel, he goes, Tyler Perry called me, and they're doing a movie about my mother and the 6888, and they want to use some of my artifacts and talk to me. And so, I mean, just, I'm bringing that up to say, like, there's still family members who are living that are
Hmm.
so happy and to celebrate their loved ones and the accomplishments that they made. And I mean, they really feel validated. And I mean, that's important for, people to be able to know that their loved ones contributed to so much in this country, and for their stories to finally be told. So yes, and I hope that they're there to celebrate. And this is
Hmm.
the time where you have to go to the White House or wherever they doing it at. So we don't like the administration, but hey, you got to pull up and get your family members' honors for sure.
Well, this won't take place. The ceremony will not take place at the White House, so they don't have to go there. And speaking of
Good,
ceremonies
good.
at the White House, we'll talk about more of that later. Ceremonies
And
at the
and I
White House.
and I also want to bring up the Nickel Boys. Have you ever heard of the Nickel Boys?
I don't know that I have.
So the Nickel Boys were a part of the World War II black men who did the parachuting to
Okay.
detonate the bombs and things. And a couple weeks ago, I had the honor of singing at one of the last members' funeral. And so I didn't know about them, and I was like, this is a whole nother six triple eight story about black people who contributed to our country that we knew nothing about. And so I'm hoping maybe Tyler Perry will do a movie on them too. We want to
There you
know. We
go.
want to know.
Yeah, well, it's funny because you laugh as you say that, but how important now is it more than ever? I keep thinking you said he might do a movie. I mean, he could do a movie. We don't
I'm
know if
wishing
he's
it. I'm
even
putting it
thinking.
out there.
Right, right. We don't know if he's thinking of it or not. But you know what? More and more, these type of stories should be told in that bigger form.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
So
100%.
yeah, I'm with you. Oh, we do have a black pop quiz
Oh,
today.
okay.
So let's see what it is. Which man, known for his speed and coaching genius, helped integrate pro football at a time when many teams still refused black players and later led an all black team in the NFL?
Hmm,
Ha!
that's a good one.
Let's,
Especially
oh, I
because of
know
what's
it.
happening.
I think
You
I know
do.
it. I think I know it. I think I know it. Yes. If I'm right, then his first initial is M. In fact, it
Mm.
might be MM. But if I'm right,
That's
but
such
we'll
a
see.
timely topic. I also saw a video about the history of the NFL, and I didn't know that it started like black men weren't allowed to play in the NFL for so many years, and then they let them play, then they pulled them out. I didn't know the history of the NFL was such a racist practice, but now I understand. Now I understand they've been colluding for a long time.
But when you found out, were you surprised?
To the level of
Mhm.
like even the Washington Redskins, like the Redskins were picked to be, that was intentional to be racist. The owners, I didn't know the level, but once I saw it, I understood. Now they've been colluding, like I said, for a long time. They've been disenfranchising black people and looked at us as like slaves for a long, and then we didn't even get to play. And then they realized, oh, we need them. We need them.
um,
We need them.
RG says the NFL had to be integrated twice. To your point, Lydia Mathis said you were singing, and Dr. Joni says, Neo, you look so pretty. I love the top.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Joni. Thank you. Thank you. But
Yeah.
yeah, Orangey, twice.
Yeah.
Washington Redskins, intentional. I didn't know that the owner was doing it to be racist.
How about speaking of the Redskins, who are now the Commanders? They are officially they have signed an agreement to officially move back into Washington D.C. So very interesting stuff going on. Mayor Bowser is huge on her sports, and she recently, or not long ago, had been involved in, and I think they settled that issue between the basketball team and the hockey team,
Mm.
the Wizards and the Capitals, to stay in Chinatown here in Washington D.C. So uh, we will see the Redskins back. I believe the
Not the
target
Redskins,
is
the Commanders, the
the Commanders
Commanders.
back. I believe the target is around 2030, but could be as
Mm.
early as 2027. But we will see. David says he's pleased that they're coming back to DC, the Washington Commanders.
Mm.
You know, folks, remember the trivia question number one. So I want to see your answers in the chat on the trivia. Uh, which athlete known for his speed and coaching brilliance helped integrate pro football and later led an all black NFL team? I want to see your answers, please, in the chat. Remember that. But the other question I wanted to ask, since we brought it up, the name changes on Redskins. The Atlanta Braves have stood fast in that they're not changing from the Braves. The Cleveland Indians changed to the Cleveland Guardians, and there have been other St. John's Redmond,
Mm.
uh, the college in New York, had changed to the St. John's Red Storm. What do you
Mm.
guys think about these name changes? What was that, Neil and folks? Was that necessary, or was it over the top? Was it long overdue?
I mean, I think it goes back to what we were just talking about when you know the historical context of a name.
Hmm.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure about the Atlanta Braves, the historical context, but when I found out that the owner intentionally picked that name to be racist, then yeah, I think it should change.
Yeah.
If it's some type of affiliation and there's no malice in it, then it's up for conversation. But for the Redskins, 100%. I mean, it was just, I had no clue, but I understand now. It's like,
Hmm.
to me, when I saw that, I thought about systemic racism, how it's
Hmm.
embedded and woven into the fabric of our nation. And then when you look at the inception of the NFL, what is happening, the collusion, how the owners come together and decide to disenfranchise a Colin Kaepernick or a Shador Sanders, or to put Deion Sanders in his place. They've been doing that since the inception of this organization. And so, it's just there. It's there and it
Yeah.
shows.
Yeah. RNG says, remember that Owner said he would draft a black player when the Harlem Globetrotters tried to draft a white boy. JFK had to make him draft a black player. David Youngblood says, if the subjects of the name are offended by it, trust them. And Mike V says, a name change only has value if you break down the history with compensation for the victims aggrieved. So Dr. Joni goes on to say, I think names are important. And when you are aware of the problematic history, then if a change can be made, it should absolutely be made. And Lydia Mathis is insisting you answer the question, Niel. Can Niel sing her next response?
Singing? I am not Beyonce. I am a sing along. I am a unison. It's so funny the answer is no, because when I sing in the choir, the first thing I do is move the mic away from my mouth. I don't want to be heard.
Well, listen, they say, you walk into an establishment, a business, something, you got to please the customer. Well, right now, I'm looking at Miss Lydia Mathis as a customer. So you got to please the customer.
I'm sorry, Miss Lydia. I'm not trying to run off nobody, okay? I'm not trying to do it.
Listen, check this out, Niel. The Trump administration said that they are certainly open to arresting Supreme Court justices. Yes, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt said, she says, I defer you when asked by a reporter about locking up the Milwaukee County judge. She says, I defer you to the Department of Justice for individuals that are looking at or individual cases. But let's be clear what this judge did. She claimed that the judge obstructed justice, but then asked a response to that Supreme Court question. She says, anyone who is breaking the law or obstructing federal law enforcement officials from doing their jobs and putting themselves at risk is putting themselves at risk as being prosecuted. Absolutely, she says. We know that this administration has shown utter contempt, and it's no wonder why that they've shown utter contempt for judges. It's no wonder why. And now with the Supreme Court making various different decisions, now she was very overt about this. They're not adverse to locking them up.
Yeah, this is just another FAFO, and this is one of those stories where okay, this is what they voted for. You know what I'm saying? I read an article yesterday about the judge that reduced Carmelo Anthony's bail. She's being investigated by the Department of Justice. For what? Now, if that would have been a Kyle Rittenhouse, it would have been justified. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just like the level of picking and choosing, the racist act of picking and choosing from this administration. It's like you can't be mad. It's just another FAFO. We knew they were going to do this. And so now for I think for us as Black folks, we're trying to figure out what's going to set us off and what we just have to be like, this is part of the voting for Donald Trump. This is what you're going to get, and this is what's going to make me mad. And this is, this is just the FAFO. And for me, this is just the FAFO.
They seem like that they have come in from a foreign country. You're talking about Trump and his administration and invaded the country and taken over. Because this is what you see in an invasion. This is what you see when an occupier, what an occupier does, and the anger and the vileness and the viciousness in which they are doing it. It's like they came in and invaded the U.S. and took over.
See, I don't look at it that way. I look at it as like, we're less than 100 years out of civil rights. We're not that far removed from what they're trying to take us back to. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like this is foreign to us. It's just foreign to maybe one or two generations. But this is like Donald Trump. He's probably only, I don't even know, a generation removed from where he's trying to take us. So this is not new, foreign to him. He's just trying to take us back to where we used to be.
Yeah, maybe because like I said, the hostility in which they're treating people, and because maybe because it's just they're not hiding, it's out front, and it hasn't been out front like this in so long. Maybe
Right.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's just bizarre.
Right, because if we know our history, we know that this is nothing new, and it's comparatively light work compared to what used to be, and they're trying to take us back there. That's why I kind of laugh sometimes when the younger the Gen Zs are saying, "I don't want another slave movie." Well, you might need to watch one because that's where we're going. Okay. Because if you know where you go, where you've been, you might not want to go back there. And because they have no recollection of the past, we see it, we know, but they don't. But they gonna FAFO if they
Listen,
don't
my
figure it out.
listen, for the first time, and I never thought this day would come. Even my wife, she opened the door for the possibility of leaving the US. And I was like, yes. I was like, yes, let's get out of here. Um, so next week, the Diddy trial will start to get underway with, they'll start calling in juries to uh, whittle down that pool and get the trial underway. Probably it's probably two weeks away or so from opening statements. But a shocking Diddy admission came reported yesterday. News reports surfaced that uh, Sean Diddy Combs is gearing up for a dramatic defense strategy in his looming federal trial. Supposedly, and I couldn't find the court documents, but according to a couple of outlets, including Media Takeout, which we know is a gossip site, and TMZ, which is also a gossip site. They have seen the court documents that argue that he's going to argue, or the defense is going to argue, that Diddy was mentally incapable of committing the alleged crimes due to heavy drug and alcohol use. They say that it's part of his mental state, and the team strategy involves having a doctor, a Columbia University professor,
Mm-hmm.
testify about Diddy's mental state.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
Yeah,
where he's going with this?
I mean, he has a lot of headlines out there about how they're going to approach this case. They still haven't really officially said if he has found the woman attorney that he is looking for. I know he had some victories with being able to see Cassie's memoir that she's working on. So he's had some victories and some losses. But what I find interesting is that his trial is going to start the day of the Met Gala, and
Mm-hmm.
that was an event that he loved to go to, and he's even taking Cassie, he's taking Young Miami. The premise of the theme for this year is Black men for the Met Gala this year. You have ASAP Rocky, LeBron James, Domingo, I forget his last name, the actor. And so
Coleman Domingo.
yeah,
Get
Coleman
that name
Domingo.
right. I
And
love
so
that
this is
name.
going to be interesting to see how the red carpet, because the question has to come up during the Met Gala about Diddy. And so New York is going to be popping on Monday because you're going to have the Met Gala over here, you're going to have the Diddy trial over here. And so all eyes will be on New York. And plus, they have a mayor's race. They got a lot going on in New York. And
Yeah,
so all eyes will
just
be on New York next week.
yeah, and I'm just so curious because the part of the documents that I did was able to see it seems to support both MTO and TMZ's reporting on this because prosecutors have objected to him using or testimony about Diddy's mental state. I really, really, really think that that is such a if there has yet to be a bombshell, that's a bombshell because to
Is it?
me, well, it is. If he's going to say basically I was insane, then that's as close to an admission of guilt as you can come. Without, if he's, that's almost an admission of guilt. And to say that he was under the influence when these things happened, that he had no control, what are you doing here? He's got 5 high-powered law firms that, from all intents and purposes, are not there to cut a plea deal, but to try and get him off.
Well, they offered him a deal. He rejected it. And talking to a lot of black men, it's like, dude, take the deal. Take the deal. Because it's like so many black men have thought that they could beat the case and not taking the deal, and then they're in jail for the rest of their lives. I've talked to a lot of black men. They're like, take the deal, bro. Take the deal.
Wow. Yeah, like I said, and so looking up the court documents and seeing the prosecutor's, I saw the prosecutor's response. I just found that to be incredible. I've covered so many celebrity trials, and I just thought that this is really incredible. But nonetheless, here we are. We'll see what happens as Diddy has his day in court. Um, Did you see the White House video yesterday by chance, Neil? They had the North Lawn just filled with booking photos of alleged illegal immigrants who they allege have had convictions on various charges. I mean, they lined the North Lawn with these huge mugshots of these guys. What are we doing?
It's so funny. A very popular content creator called I Am Legally Hype was like, what are they doing? Arts and crafts at the White House? What are they making posters, arts and crafts, and putting up? That's what we elected them to do. I mean, it's just insane. And it looks so tacky. It's like, y'all worried about what black folks gonna do. You guys are just, I mean, just degrading and just the tackiest people in that White House we have ever seen. I mean, that is just the tackiest thing you could do. You could have went in the press briefing room. You could have put that on the press website. You could have passed that out to the journalists and let them get the word out about who you arrested. That right there, very tacky, very low class. It just shows what we're working with.
Yeah, how about not putting it out at all? Isn't it when the Department of Justice, typically when the Department of Justice has arrested someone for something violent or these charges, whatever, they'll put out a press release and that's that.
Right. Or how about the press secretary will have the lead DOJ person from the Department of Justice come and speak to the press about it.
Well,
right?
it
they
has
could
to be
do that.
Yeah, yes, but even in that case, it generally in the past, and I'm talking about all presidents. I'm not talking about the one that just preceded us, but I'm talking about all presidents in the past. For the DOJ to come to the White House, for the press secretary to have the DOJ at the White House at a press briefing, it had to have been a matter of national security, a huge event. These folks they're showing supposedly were arrested over several different years and whatever. But give me a break. This is wow. It's
are
like
probably
they decorated their walls with this. I'm sorry.
there
Go
are
ahead.
probably 50 other ways they could have did this, but that way.
Yeah, how about no way?
They could have had a press conference at the Department of Justice. Like I said, they could have had their key person in charge of this. They could have had Homeland Security come and speak. They could have did 50 other things besides print up. You're telling us that you're cutting jobs because we don't have no money, but you go print all this stuff up, and then you have to get the materials to print it up, wasting all this money. And either you're going to piss people off, and the MAGAs don't care about that. So it's just a waste of time.
Yeah, it was just awful. All right. Neil, I think we have a guest, don't we?
I think so. I think we do. So we know that the Smithsonian African American Museum, there have been a lot of headlines out about certain artifacts being removed, and then responses saying no, they haven't been removed. But we do have a guest right now, an honorable guest, Dr. Amos Brown, who's the president of the San Francisco NAACP, and he was the co-chair of the California Reparations Task Force. Welcome, Dr. Amos Brown, to Black Press Let It Be Known this morning.
Thank you very much, Neil, for having me.
Yes, and thank you for getting up this
Let
morning.
me make a correction. I'm president emeritus of the branch and also a member of the National Board of Directors. And more importantly, I'm pastor of the historic Third Baptist Church of San Francisco. Let me jump on your bandwagon.
Let's go.
Correct, sir. This is not the first time that a White House has not done silly things. Remember, if you read, you discover that it was Woodrow Wilson in 1915 who showed a movie, The Birth of a Nation. What was it about? It was about applauding, extolling the evil lynchings by the Ku Klux Klan and saying that the Union was wrong in fighting the Confederacy. So our problem in America, as Abraham Asimov said, is that we have a cult of ignorance. What is ignorance? It's not putting down a person, but it is stating what's in the book of the Old Testament. Hosea said, "My people perish because of a lack of knowledge." And Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois said a long time ago, a nation is not to be measured by the number of millionaires that it has, but by the quality of the educational system, quality of the healthcare system, and how many people can read and know how to read worthwhile books. Know how to read worthwhile books.
Right.
Well, Dr. Amos, with that, let us jump in there because what you're saying too leads right into the Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. We've done a lot of reports, and we know that you've been really the subject of a lot of conversations. I saw you on CNN, among others. Can you give us what exactly is happening over there? Briefly, just tell us what's happening at the African American Museum of History and Culture.
It has been affected by Trumpism and what his ministers have been doing. And they said they were going to do it, but we did not listen. We did not read. In that document, Project 2025,
right.
It's all there. But what did we do in America, in the general population? Oh, that's just Trump talking. He is not going to do that. No. He did it. And if we paid attention to his rhetoric and even his style of speaking like a claptrap, it harkens back to the style of Adolf Hitler. Just read the Third Reich.
Dr. Amos, so you had two artifacts in the museum. You had a Bible and you had the oldest history written book by Reverend George Washington Williams of 1880. And so you had two artifacts within the museum. And so what happened? So you loaned these artifacts to the museum. And you said within a week something happened. You got a letter from the museum. Can you talk to us about that?
I got a letter stating that my Bible that I used in the civil rights movement when I went to jail, my father's Bible, as you indicated, a copy of the oldest written history of the Negro race that was written by a Black Baptist preacher, Reverend George Washington Williams. John Hope Franklin did a biography on this great preacher. And it was about the history of our race from 1619 to 1880. He wrote the book when he was pastor of the historic Union Baptist Church of Cincinnati, Ohio. Now, this is a museum, and the one place where they should have welcomed keeping a copy of that book. But they decided that they wanted to return it. Under the previous administration there at the museum, from when we were there for the dedication in 2016 up until last week, there was always respect shown, communication. And they would ask me if I would give it to them permanently or I just wanted to extend the loan. But this was an abrupt letter that was sent to me by email stating that my books would be returned. And when I called them and challenged them on this, they tried to backtrack and came up with a flimsy excuse. Oh, the light has been on the books too long and they are fragile. Oh my God. That's a museum.
Yep.
They know how to preserve artifacts.
Right.
Yep.
It was a question of they are not even realizing the significance of this book. That's it. They did not have the respect for even our history.
Yeah. So,
That
Dr.
they would
Brown,
be that cavalier about this matter.
right. So you mentioned just now they had previously even inquired about having it there for a lifetime.
Yes.
And so all of a sudden, you can have it back. We don't want it anymore.
Yes.
Are you seeing or hearing? I'm imagining that other than your artifacts, you probably know of others who have things at that museum. Are you hearing anybody else getting letters or things of that nature that they're getting their artifacts back, that the museum doesn't want it anymore?
I have not been in communication with anyone, but I do know by reliable sources that it's very quiet there. And they're moving around like people are tiptoeing on eggs. And when I was a child in Jackson, Mississippi, whenever in the summer we would be in a room and everything would be quiet, Mama would say, "What's going on in there? You must be into something. It's too quiet there."
Yeah.
And that's what's happening.
Dr. Amos, who did the letter exactly come from?
It came from one of the staff members. His first name is Connie, but is a representative of the staff. Under the previous staff, Ms. Nichols, whom I had regular communication with, she's African American. There's no problem at all. But we got to look deeper and realize that for the man down in Florida to have come up with a campaign to ban certain books, there's a game going on in this nation to force upon us cultural and historical Alzheimer's and dementia. And when that is done, people become controlled by fascists, dictators, the Caesars, Mussolini. All we have to do, again, I repeat, is just read. As old holiness preacher would say in the sanctified church, when he would be exhorting. We have got to read and turn to each other, love on each other, and survive and thrive in spite of these dark moments. And we are in dark moments, but this is not the first time. I don't know whether or not both of you've seen that documentary, 100 Years from Mississippi. If you haven't, you must as soon as you can. It's about the lynching of a black man in 1919 named John Hartsfield, who in, listen, 1915, along with his friend, a Baptist preacher, had to flee from Mississippi, from Centerville, Mississippi, to East St. Louis, Illinois. Why? Because word had gotten around Centerville, it's down there near Laura, Mississippi, that he, Mr. John Hartsfield, had raped a white woman. But it was not true. He had a consensual relationship with this lady. Mm-hmm. But they had to get out of town. And this lady named Mamie, the daughter, heard her father at the age of 7 telling her about the lynching of John Hartsfield. Hmm. And she left Mississippi and didn't go back until 100 years later. And her son said to her, "Mama, let's do a documentary on the lynching of John Hartsfield. And it would blow your mind if you saw it."
Well, Dr. Brown,
let me finish this. You need to hear this. It was on the 26th of June, 1919, when he went back home. They strung him up in the center of town on a gum tree. And do you know there was an adverse atmosphere so great that they announced in the Jackson Daily News, my hometown paper, that John would be lynched at 5 o'clock on Thursday. And you know how many people showed up for the lynching? 10,000. 10,000. And when people appealed to the governor of the state, Theodore Bilbo, who was a bigot and a racist, like Mr. Trump, what did he say? America is a white man's country. America is a white man's civilization. And any Negro who has a dream of having social and political equality will be shattered. Will be shattered. And in 1947, he bragged when he was in the U.S. Senate about how he paid people to terrorize blacks to keep them from voting. So, friends, what I'm reciting, I'm not just talking about it, I'm just talking about what I'm talking about. I'm just passing on to you what is a fact. And this nation was, is, and will always be, unless there's a radical transformation of the hearts of people who are white and in control of the political process.
Mm.
Yes, there's that awful picture there.
Yeah. What are you hearing, Dr. Brown, seeing any indication that there is going to be or is some sort of resistance to them taking artifacts out of the Smithsonian African American Museum?
Yes, there's resistance going on, and not only that, but there is heightened support for the pastor of the Empowerment Temple Church up in Baltimore, who's asking every one of his members to take out an annual $25 membership fee, because Mr. Trump did threaten to cut off funding for that museum. Why did he, target this museum? This museum is not bothering anyone. It just tells the truth, the whole truth. And Jesus of Nazareth said, "Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." But we have been enslaved to alternative facts, conspiracy theories, and downright lies.
Right.
Yep, that's the truth.
You definitely are giving us a history lesson, which we definitely appreciate and need. You brought up the Black church. There is a movement within the Black church now to contribute to the museums. Have you talked to any other pastors besides the Empowerment Temple, or is there some type of mobilization that you know of within the Black church to have more members participate in this call to action to support the museum?
Yes, Dr. Holmes down in Florida at Bethel Baptist Church in Tallahassee. Dr. Fred Haynes of Friendship West, one of the sons of Third Baptist Church, a young man whom I'm very proud of. I licensed and ordained him to preach. And he, without a doubt, is one of the classic prophets of our times. So there are others who are very much of like mind and practice.
That's good to hear, for sure. Now, Dr. Brown, even with your what's happening with you in the Black press, and April Ryan was the first to break the news. You've had even some in the community in our own profession that look like us push back against that reporting, against what you have revealed. What would you say to the doubters about what is happening at that museum right now?
They are asleep and not awake, or not woke. Remember, Marcus Garvey is one of the persons who popularized the notion and the idea of being awake. What does it mean? Simply is to be enlightened, to resist, to not let anyone mess with your ethnic, cultural identity. Be who you are. Tell your own story. Speak for yourself. Respect other people. Respect diversity. And as my old friend Jeremiah Wright said, diversity does not mean deficiency. And we may have been made to believe, many of us, that it's a sin, it's a crime to be different and to honor your history and heritage. But we ought to always do as the Jews have done. They've had rituals of remembrances, not once a year, but every week at that feast of the Passover. And what we need to do more of in our Black churches is have our rituals of remembrances on Friday or whatever night we choose, so that we will be able to tell to our young people how horrible, hellish, is America. Many don't know. One young man just a week ago was at a function with some laymen. And you know what he said? I'm
What?
glad that I came because my parents told us that what Martin Luther King said happened to blacks in the South was not true. Can you imagine that?
Hmm.
A young man in his 20s admitted it, that what he heard from his elders, that what Martin Luther King fought for, gave his life for, what he was claiming was happening was not true.
Dr. Amos, I have a question for you. So they said that they were going to send you your artifacts back. What's the process? Have you received them? And do you have any thoughts of any other museums that you would like to place these artifacts in?
Well, I was told that they were to be here on the 1st or the 2nd of May. And when they come, I will decide what I would do with them. But also, as I said earlier, when I called the leadership there and said how dismayed, disgusted I was to have heard that and read that, then they start trying to, the next day, backpedal by saying to me, we can let a panel review this matter and determine whether or not, as you have offered, to send the articles back in order that we might keep them. But who's on the panel? Nobody knows. Why can't this museum be transparent now, particularly now? And anytime people are in closed door sessions and you don't know who are the actors, you better rest assured and know that something is going on. And as they say in Mississippi, there's a cat on the line.
Well, Dr. Brown, my final question is, have you had any recent or past communication with Dr. Lonnie Bunch?
No, I'm not. No, not much. No. And
I think
this whole matter is about us,
mm-hmm.
and it's about this nation. It's not about just Dr. Lonnie Bunch, who's done an excellent job from day one. And by the way, you know, on the day of the opening in 2016, my family and I were there, but we didn't know where the exhibit was. The desegregation civil rights exhibit. That's the area where it is, right near the lunch counter that those students sat down at in 1960. And let me give you another piece of history. The student movement did not begin in Greensboro, North Carolina, 1960. It began in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, in 1958, under the auspices of the Oklahoma City Youth Council of NAACP. This other thing we got to dispel is that NAACP has not just been this litigating organization, you know, with old folks. No. In 1958, Barbara Posey was president of the Youth Council in Oklahoma City, and Clara Luper was the advisor. Hundreds of children from elementary school to high school sat down and broke down segregation. And at the national convention of the NAACP, Clara Luper brought a busload of young people, and they told the Oklahoma City story. And there was a young man there who was an alternate delegate from Greensboro, North Carolina, named Ezella Blair. He got fired up after hearing their story and went back to Greensboro as an entering freshman at A&T College and tried to get students that fall to sit down. But they couldn't get enough courage to do it then. However, it was on February the 1st, 1960, that he got 3 others to go with him. That is the truth. It's on file in the Library of Congress, and we ought to tell our story aright.
Dr. Brown, it's always a history lesson when I am in the room with you, and I truly appreciate it. We are short on time, but before we let you go, we have to ask, because it's definitely relative. You were also the co-chair of the California Reparations Task Force. You guys released your report. In this climate, in all this conversation that we just had, do you think that California will still be the first to actually obtain reparations?
No.
Okay.
No.
Why? We're short on time, but can you give us your why? Yeah.
The will is not there. If it was, we would have had reparation measure in action. Now, not just apologies, not just talk, not just another study to determine how to find one's lineage. You see, a lot of times people will do studies and talk to stall and do nothing. But as sweet Daddy Grace, that great preacher of yesteryears, said, we must tangibilitate the gospel. A reporter once asked him, how did he feed all the people up and down the Eastern Seaboard? How did he build houses for people who were homeless? And he told this young white reporter, boy, the answer is simple. I just learned how to tangibilitate the gospel of Jesus Christ. He created a new word, tangibilitate. And that's what more we should do in America. Tangibilitate the gospel and to do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and not be mean and disrespectful of people because of their race, their gender, their religion, or their immigrant status. We ought to be a family in America. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, and all ought to mean all.
Well, amen. And thank you so much for getting up early this morning. We appreciate it. And we definitely would like to check back in with you as this conversation continues, Dr. Brown.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity of sharing with you, and keep up the good work that you're doing of getting the good factual news out to our people, as the Black press has always done from day one.
Amen.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Amos Brown.
Yes, always. You're going to always get more than what you ask for. And in this day and time, Black history is so important.
Well, obviously, he lived a lot of Black history, and the knowledge of what has transpired over his time and beyond his. It's always good to hear it from the truthful perspective, and not this contrived. And that's why the museum situation is so important. That's why I can't understand why anyone would push back on Dr. Brown saying, and telling you the facts that his artifacts, just recently they were saying it's, before this administration, they were considering getting him to sign an agreement with, it would be a lifetime. And now all of a sudden it's no longer needed. They can't preserve it anymore. That's ridiculous.
Right.
So come on, folks. The reporting on this from the jump, April Ryan had the story first, and obviously it set off a lot of things there. And I noticed that a lot of news organizations, even this past weekend and even this morning, still seeing stories about it. So it's not something for us to fight amongst each other about. We had to fight against. We should be fighting against what is happening.
Right. I mean, because I think what happens is people get caught up in the nuances of it. Okay, so and you see what's happening with Dr. Brown. Um, he pushed back, and now they're saying that they're going to put it under a panel review. So it's like the story gets out there, and then they pull it back. And that's where the confusion happens. It's like, no, when certain things were reported, that's what it was. And now that it's out there, like Dr. Brown said, everybody in there is real quiet. So the moves
Hmm.
that are being made are not being talked about, and they're just reactionary. And so okay, we got to put that fire out. So now let's keep the chair there, but now let's send Dr. Brown a letter and get rid of his books. And
Yeah.
then we chase that story, and then the panel will say probably, okay, we're gonna keep those books, but let's get rid of this. And that's the cat and mouse game that they playing with us.
Yeah, and I'd be highly suspicious of any body, especially anybody who is connected to media that's black, that will whisper to someone that, oh, or put on their social media sites attacking another black reporter about, something so significant. Because the story really is the fact that Donald Trump and his people are
Right.
trying to erase history, our history, not anybody else's history, so we shouldn't be fighting among ourselves.
Right. And we just went, I mean, well, you just came up to DC. I was just in DC, and we just did a story. Our perspective, which will be coming out soon, is from the people. So Stacy and I were able to talk to some of the visitors at the museum to get their take. And what we did discover is that a lot of people were there because they were afraid that the museum would not be the same when they came back. So this is a fear that is happening amongst, just like Dr. Brown said, the laymen, just the visitors, of not the people that hold the artifacts, not the people who run the museum, not the legislators, but just the average everyday people who are going to the museum. There are a lot of those people who are concerned and are going back to the museum just because they feel like it's not going to remain the same.
Yeah,
So be on the lookout for that.
I asked him about Dr. Lonnie Bunch because at this point now I just want to see proof of life.
Right,
Just me, I just want to see proof of life. Lonnie
right,
Bunch, let us know that you're okay.
right.
Just say hello.
And
That's it.
he has a lot more at stake because he is over all the Smithsonian
Hmm.
museums, right? So it's
Exactly.
not just the African American Museum, although that's the one that's being attacked.
Yeah,
His
and that's his
scope of
baby.
work, yeah, and his scope of work is much larger. It's all the
Mhm.
Smithsonian museums. But we would like to hear from Dr. Lonnie Bunch, but we don't know what's going on, and it sounds like it's a lot. Dr.
That's
Amos
what I
said it's
said.
real
I
quiet.
know. I get it that he's not speaking to the media. He's not speaking to a lot of people. I get it. But I just want to see Dr. Bunch that you okay.
Proof of
Just,
life.
just, just wave to a camera or something. Just say and timestamp it. Let us know that we don't. Otherwise, that you got Dr. Bunch. You got people in the community. We ready to put some masks on and load up and come get you.
Yeah, I mean,
Protect you.
yeah, there are certain. I mean, it's so funny that we were talking about this, and it's all relative, like the football teams, and the lessons that Dr. Amos was giving us about history. I mean, these are things that are breaking our hearts, right?
Mhm.
And so there are certain things that are going to trigger us to get involved. And I definitely think that this museum, the Smithsonian, the African American Museum, the history of it all is something that a lot of Black Americans are not happy about. I'm glad that the Black church is stepping up. I would love to see the Church of God in Christ, the CMEs, the AMEs, the Baptists, the United Methodists. To do a more mobilized and coalition effort to really preserve this museum, because that's an example. That's an example that the Black church can show at large, how they are going to help maintain our history. Dr. Brown brought up teaching Black history in the Black church. That might be where we have to start and preserve our history, is in the Black church. So I hope a lot more pastors and denominations heed the call and get involved in this important
Yeah, and my
outreach.
final note on that really comes from Dr. Joni. She's spot on And I don't hear anyone talking about this, but she's right. We should have an accounting of everything that is there, was there, and to know what is disappearing. I think that is vital.
Great idea. That is a great idea. Great
Yep.
idea.
All right.
Um,
So you got some
we got some
quickies.
quickies. We do have some quickies. I'm going to run through these real quick. The murder trial of the three officers charged with Tyree Nichols' murder. It started this week. We know this is the second go around. There's also a federal case against these three men that will not be heard until this trial is finished. But of course, we know what made this story so interesting is that it was black men, police officers that murdered Tyree Nichols. And so the trial is underway, and we'll definitely keep you updated as to how it is moving. We've lost Stacy as well, an icon in politics. Alex M. Herman, the nation's first black Secretary of Labor. She was also the first black chief of staff for the DNC and the first black person to serve as CEO of the Democratic Convention. She passed away, and a lot of her mentees, like Bishop Leah Daughtry, you have the For Color Girls who have considered politics. That's Mignon Moore, Yolanda Caraway, Donna Brazil. They are all showing their love for this icon who was the first of many, especially within the Democratic Party. We had another loss. You brought up Puff Daddy earlier.
Puff Daddy.
You brought him up earlier, but
I know. It's just funny hearing you say Puff Daddy.
oh, well, Diddy, Bad Boy executive Phil Robinson has passed away with cancer. Phil was an icon, especially in the
Hmm.
'90s. I knew him. He was with Kirk Franklin way back when The Reason Why We Sing hung out with them in New Orleans. He also managed Silk. And he was just such an icon and a go-to within the industry. And a lot of people are showing their love for him as he passed away with cancer. He was ill for a while, and he leaves behind his daughter and his wife. And then moving on and keeping up with music and keeping it hot and fresh. The class of this year's Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
There you
Rock and Roll
go.
Hall of Fame.
Salt and pepper is here.
Outkast and Salt and Pepper are being inducted. Now there are a few other people, but we just want to focus on the hip hop today. And so Salt and Pepper and Spinderella. Let's not forget Spin.
Okay, I was gonna ask that.
Yeah, of course, Spinderella. D Nice showed them some love, and Spinderella thanked him yesterday. But Outkast as well. They really much, I mean, back in the '90s, Players Ball, they were hits. Okay, so these two are going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And then what else do we have? Ryan Coogler. Ryan Coogler is still dominating the movie theaters. He's landed the number one movie for the second week in a row, and he's crossed the 161 million mark globally, which means that they have recouped their money. Cost 90 million to make. And Ryan Coogler is setting the bar high for horror movies and just the movie industry. Ryan Coogler has brought the movie theaters back, Stacy. Just brought them back. So shout out to that brother.
Because everything is like Netflix or whatever.
Yeah, the movies is back.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and it was so much fun to see that in the movie theater. It was a great movie. So I encourage everybody, let's keep it number one for another week. Go see it.
I like going to the movie theater. I like getting my nachos with cheese and a drink, and just sitting back and just munching out and just kicking back and the theater, dark theater.
Right. Yes. So let's keep it at number one for another week. And last but not least, this story was trending like crazy. It started with Saquon Barkley, who over the weekend golfed with Donald Trump, and he was on the helicopter, and we seen that. But then the news broke as the Eagles were set to be at the White House yesterday. Jalen Hurts, along with other, teammates, did not attend the White House visit as Super Bowl champions, and they cited due to scheduling conflicts. Trump didn't take shots at Jalen Hurts, but Black America is just So proud of Jalen because, you know, he didn't make any comments about it when he was asked. But I mean, just not showing up and saying nothing is a much more powerful statement. And so, yeah, Jalen Hurts was the trending topic of yesterday.
And I'm gonna borrow this from my girl Jamil Hill. She nailed it, essentially saying if Saquon Barkley, and we'll have a little bit more about him in a moment, but if Saquon Barkley is able to voice that he's visiting with the president because he respects the office, then Jalen Hurts should be able to say that he doesn't want to go because he objects to the president, he and others who didn't go. If it is a scheduling conflict, totally fine. If it's not, they should be afforded the same right of disagreement or based off their own morality, given the way this presidential administration has been very specific about their attacks on Black people. Then if players take an issue, it shouldn't be a problem. Good for Jalen Hurts and those other teammates. To my count, it was about 15 of them who decided they were not going.
Yeah, I mean, I think saying less was more powerful than saying
Yeah,
more.
yep. And but we also know, and I think to Jamel Hill's point, that the blowback of just coming out and saying, "Look, I object," blah blah blah. It could be something that he doesn't want to have to deal with. He and others don't want to have to deal with. So, but you're right. Him not saying nothing,
And
you
I mean,
know.
to me, that just seems like his personality too. Even when you watched him during leading up to the Super Bowl, he is a man of few words. And
Hmm.
so I don't think that it was, I just think that's his style. Versus if you look at a Steph Curry when Trump was in office before and they were invited to the White House, Steph Curry was just like, I ain't going. And he said it. But that's his
Hmm.
personality. Jalen Hurts, like I say, he's a man of few words. Throughout his career. And so this was on point for him. But it spoke volumes.
Yeah,
It
and
spoke
and
volumes.
Steph Curry has a coach in Steve Kerr who is very outspoken against this president.
Mm-hmm.
That helps. He's sort of like the coach Popovich from San Antonio, who has long been outspoken about what's been going on with this president and this country, particularly this time around. He was the first time around, and he is doubled down, tripled down. He's like Robert De Niro, who cannot stomach this president or presidency. Um, but that takes us right into the black card being revoked. Saquon Barkley. Who else? I mean, this guy is so tone deaf. Okay, you want to say that you respect the office or whatever, and that to me, okay, you want to respect the office, but and this is what he says. LOL, some people are really upset because I played golf and flew to the White House with the president. In all capital letters, he put president, sort of like what Trump does. He says, maybe I just respect the office, not a hard concept to understand. Just golf with Obama not too long ago and look forward to finishing my round with Trump. Now, y'all get out of my mentions with all this politics and have an amazing day. He closed out the post with a crying, laughing emoji. Of course, the Eagles won the Super Bowl. They accepted, the team as a whole accepted the invitation and visited the White House. But you talk about tone deaf, and that, you talk about, but I think a larger picture here, most, or maybe I should say many, I think most, but I'd be probably safer to say many affluent and famous African Americans, many affluent, I'll say affluent, are so out of touch with reality because I think a lot of this, a Saquon Barkley, we talked about the museum, we talked about, um, Social Security and Medicaid. That stuff doesn't phase them. It doesn't factor into their everyday lives, and it doesn't factor into their close loved ones' lives. And I think that's not the entire problem, but that I believe is part of the problem.
What are you talking about when like having
This acceptance of such cruelty, being pally and playing golf and shaking hands and taking photo ops with a guy. It would be like it would be like a Jewish person taking pictures and palling around with Hitler.
I just don't think it's the affluent. I mean, there's just a group of black people who support Trump. I mean, look at the
I
Black
get it.
History. I mean,
Mhm.
look at the Black History event that they had. It wasn't a lot of rich black people in there. It was a ton of black people who just for whatever reason feel like they're seen and heard in a Trump atmosphere and they're not seen and heard in other spaces. I think it's access, like the affluent, it's the access that they have to the
Mhm.
president. But then there's just this whole other group of black people who, for whatever reason, they feel seen, they feel heard, and they just resonate with a Donald Trump. And then we know if we take it a little step higher, especially black men, they just whatever it is about Trump, they just feel like they gonna get the bag with him. When I talk to some black men, they feel like they have access to get more wealth, or it's gonna work out better for them business wise under a Trump administration. And I just still haven't saw the connection. I just don't see it.
Yeah, and RNG is right. He said, say the quiet part out loud. A black athlete who attended a PWI, 90% of them are sellouts. Um,
Ooh,
Listen,
whoa.
I can't argue with that. Can't argue with
Whoa.
it. I cannot argue with it. Even Dr. Joni said, agreed. I just don't, I can't argue with that. It rings true to me. It really rings true. I just find it incredible that even as if you support this guy and you're black, if you're Saquon Barkley, um,
Or if you Saquon Jefferson.
yeah. To me, now is not the time. There's a time and place for everything. Now is not the time to be flaunting. Now it's not a time to flaunt it. That's the other part of it.
But you know what I saw with that too is that internally, we were talking about the NFL earlier. I felt when I see stuff like that, I saw that the Eagles knew that Jalen Hurts wasn't gonna come. He already told them I ain't going. The other day we not going. So they had to find somebody to, particularly a black
Mhm.
person,
Right?
to align with Trump. And so
Yeah.
that wasn't just an invite to Saquon. To me, that was the organization saying, Saquon, we need you of the story. So on
Yeah.
Sunday, we want you to go play golf with the president. So when it comes out Monday that Jalen's not going, because we knew he wasn't going at the time. When the Time magazine event, the reporter asked him, "Are you going to the White House?" He thought about it. He walked away. So they knew he wasn't going. So to me, the Eagles got ahead of the story, sent Saquon, and then when the news broke, the other story was Saquon. To me, that's how I read that situation. It really probably didn't even have anything to do with Saquon. It wasn't even his choice. I'm just saying. That's typically how it goes.
We need somebody to go tap dance, toe dance, buck dance for this guy.
That's what
So
happened.
you
I can guarantee you that's what happened. And Saquon said, I'll go. I don't have a
yeah,
problem with it. He's the president. I don't care
yeah,
either way. I got
yeah.
money. None of it ain't affecting me. I'll do it.
Right. 100%. ONG says that Saquon's wife hates black people anyway. He
Oh,
bases it on a lot of her tweets.
wait, is she us or is she
She not like us.
she not like us?
She not
Okay.
like us.
Oh, well, see, that makes it easier to choose him. If that's the
Yeah,
case,
like
it's
Patrick
easier.
Mahomes. Like Patrick Mahomes, It's like, give me a break. These guys
He
are
just said
crazy.
he had to cut his nappy hair. Did you see that?
Yeah, exactly.
Patrick.
Go
Patrick.
somewhere. Go somewhere. All right. A couple of Black history moments on this date. In 1854, Lincoln University becomes the nation's first historically Black degree granting institution of higher education. The school has an alumni who have significantly impacted not just African American, but American history and culture. And Lincoln is defined by more than just its history. The nation, gosh, I keep saying this wrong, but the Lincoln alumni, Lincoln itself is consistently honored as one of the country's best HBCUs and in the top 50 schools nationwide for social mobility. So on this date in 1854, Lincoln University became the nation's first historically Black degree granting institution of higher education. There you go.
Wow. And on this date in 1992, gonna fast forward it,
Mhm.
1992 social unrest. We call it civil unrest here in LA. Broke out in Los Angeles. This was after four
Mhm.
officers were acquitted in the beating of Rodney King. But I think it's also important to note that Latasha Harlan was killed at a liquor store by an Asian
Mhm.
lady. This also fed this
Mhm.
situation. And then this is where the quote, "Can't we all just get along?" came out of
Yep.
the notorious quote. And this also set the stage for the OJ trial, because this is why
100%. This is
OJ was able to walk away, because Black folks was just, in the words of Fannie Lou Hamer, sick and tired of being sick and tired.
This is what you 100% spot on. This is exact. It wasn't, Johnny Cochran was great. The Dream Team was great, and all of that, all the mistakes that Gil Garcetti made, et cetera, et cetera. This was because his acquittal was because of that right there and what had
Mm-hmm.
happened with those officers being acquitted in Simi Valley. That was payback. That was, like you said, Fannie Lou Hamer. I am sick and
Sick
tired.
and
We are
tired.
sick and tired of being sick and tired. Yep.
Yep,
Yep.
Latasha Harlan,
'Cause
that murder, it was just so much happening in LA at the time. I was actually at Grambling State University watching this on TV. I wasn't at home. But when I tell you, there are some places in LA that still haven't been restored
mhm.
since 92. And
Yep.
Dr. Amos Brown, you have it's Danny Bakewell Sr., the publisher of the LA Sentinel. He was definitely at the forefront along with Cecil Chip Murray from First AME Church. You had who's now gone, Bo Taylor, as well as Cecil Chip Murray, who was gang intervention and prevention. And between Mr. Bakewell, Cecil Chip Murray, and Bo Taylor, they were able to help curve the anger, especially from gang members and just people who were just totally pissed off. First Family Church became a haven of restoration in our community. So rest in peace to the Honorable Reverend Cecil Chip Murray, and along with Bo Taylor from
Yeah,
American.
Black people, we're the only folks that got 8 days in a week, Sunday through Saturday, and then it's Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and someday.
Ooh, I like that.
That's it.
I like
We are the only ones.
someday.
Yep. So let's get back to our Black History Pop quiz. What's the answer? Since everybody chickened out this morning, I didn't see any responses to the
None?
question this morning. She really stumped everybody with that. Which athlete known for his speed and coaching brilliance helped integrate pro football? Fritz Pollard. Yeah, so I was wrong. Um, I was thinking of, and I said I was thinking of Mercury Morris, but Fritz Pollard. That's a great one. Wow. Okay. Great question. Brown Bombers. Oh, wait. Yeah, he did. RG did say that, and he even said Brown Bombers. Yes. So I take that back. He got it right.
Oh, okay.
All right. So that's our Black History Pop quiz. He said, you better scroll up. I saw it. I forgot. I saw it. All right. Our Black owned newspaper of the day is none other. It comes out of New York again. It's the Hudson Valley Press. The Hudson Valley Press is the first and only minority-owned newspaper that gives coverage to Orange, Dutchess, Westchester, Rockland, and Ulster counties up in New York. While primarily targeting the Black and Latino community, the weekly Hudson Valley Press promotes unification among all races and celebrates diversity. So go check out the Hudson Valley Press, check out their website. If you're local, hey, why not pick up a copy of the Hudson Valley Press?
All right. And for headlines 24/7 and someday, as Stacy said, don't forget about the someday. You can head over to blackpressusa.com. We uplift, we inspire, and of course, we bring you the headlines that are impacting the Black experience. That's blackpressusa.com.
And folks, again, thanks so much. Thanks again to Dr. Brown and clearing up stuff that really shouldn't really have to be cleared up. But I'm glad that he could come on, let it be known, and clear some things up. So, Niel, we will be back at it again tomorrow.
All right.
Peace out.